Hey there. Welcome into Not All There. I am Chad. I am your host. This is a podcast where I talk with people about addiction, recovery, and how the hell you go about living a sober life, which is not exactly all it's cracked up to be some days. You get sober, and now what do you do? Well, the people I bring on, we talk about that. And today, the person that's with me, my dear friend Joe B. I love the guy. He is an artist. He is very humble and bright and sweet. He's just one of the best people that I know. And I'm really excited to get a chance to talk to him about this. You know, the purpose of this, Joe and I were just actually talking about this off mic, but the whole purpose, or not the whole, but one of the reasons I started this podcast is that our society, and for lack of a better phrase, the recovery industry does a really fine job of providing tools and information for people to help them recognize that, hey, I think I do have a problem, and I think I need to seek help. And there's so many avenues for a person to seek that help and get sober. Joe and I were a couple of AA guys, but by no means is that the only way a person can get sober. It's just what's worked for us. And it's kind of morphed into, other stuff after that. But the baseline's always been the 12 steps of AA. But once you get through, if you go to rehab, you get out of rehab. And they're like, okay, here you go. Go get him, Tiger. And you're like, well, what the fuck am I doing now? Like, I don't have my shit together. Like, I'll tell you this. I'm going to speak for Joe on this and say, for me personally, I don't have my shit together. Joe, do you have your shit together?
I hope not.
Excellent. So the two people here, we don't have our shit together. And the people who act or pretend like they do have their shit together, they're really afraid because they absolutely 1000% don't have their shit together. So with that being said, let me introduce my good friend, Joe B. Joe, say hello.
Hello. How's it going, Chad? Man, it's really great to be here. I appreciate the invite. This is super cool. What an honor to be on your podcast. I love it.
Thank you, man. This is really good, and I have to say, this is the first long distance one I've done.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, you are in New Jersey, right?
That's right.
What part of Jersey are you in?
I'm in a little town called Metuchen, which is in another little town called Edison. So we're actually in the center. We're in the donut hole, right? Like Edison completely surrounds us. So cute, quaint little northeast town, cute as can be. It's not what I expected. I thought it was going to be, The Sopranos when I got to New Jersey. But
we're just fucking morons, man. I know. I think about that too.
Yeah, assumptions at the wazoo, right?
Yeah, right, man. Hey, that's what makes us us. So how long you been sober?
So I took my last drink on February 26, 2019. Nice. So coincidentally, I am 2,007 days sober. I hit that a week ago, 2,000. I like metrics, so I thought that was a pretty cool one, even though it's not AA.
That is awesome, man. That is great.
Yeah, thanks.
So now, did that happen when you were in Jersey? Because I feel like the last time you and I were actually in the same room together, you were getting ready to head down to, was it Houston? Was Texas, I believe, right? Was it Houston?
Yeah. Yep,
yeah. Houston. You'd seen a better, that was not your best day.
Dude, I was a mess back then. Yeah.
So what was going on then?
Cow. Well, you knew me. I think you were actually sitting at the front of the table. I think it was St. Mary's. Is that the one with like 6 foot tall ceilings?
Yep.
Because I'm 6'5". Yeah. I remember them being tight.
Yeah, you're that tall, man.
Yep. And so you were there like day one, and that was in Chicago. That was a rough time, right? Like, of course it is. Coming into AA, you got our tail tucked between our legs. It's rough.
Yeah.
I had a bunch of goes at it, if you will. How was it? It was insane. I had no idea that I drank like an alcoholic. I just
Right.
thought that I normalized and rationalized the way that I drank and used drugs to the point
Uh-huh.
where it's like everybody does this. They just
Yeah.
don't talk about it. Like it's,
r-
right.
Right.
Everybody drinks 3 pints of vodka, a day, before five. That's me getting going, right?
What is it with us and that fucking vodka, man? I
It's
mean,
clear,
yeah,
right?
it's
So,
clear. Yeah,
yeah,
it's like it's water.
a water
So
bottle.
yeah. All right. Well, let's take a step back then. So where are you from? Where did you grow up?
So I call Texas home, Houston,
Okay.
Texas.
All right.
I've been all over the place in my life, but that's home. And yeah, I first got sober in Chicago.
Hmm.
Then I moved back to Texas, and I moved to New Jersey 21 days sober, broken and alone. It was this crazy, crazy time. I mean, in between there's some stories, of course, right? Like there's some stories. Uh, you know, as I said, I got sober in Chicago. So my first wife at the time, right?
Hmm.
We moved there 6 months previous, and I'm an artist, so I'm a photographer, and been there for 6 months, and I finally got a gig. I finally got a client. I was shooting some jewelry, and um, she comes in, walks in the door to surprise me. Hey, coming home early, see how it's going. And I was pouring another pint of vodka. It was like 1 in the afternoon, right? And I was like, I'm just getting ready to
Hey,
go. I'm getting the creative juices flowing.
no shit. What are you doing here?
Yeah. So, then I got the or else. So
Oh
it's like,
man.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I first started in AA to avoid that or else, right? Like I
Yeah.
wasn't doing it for anybody but her until like
Exactly.
not get kicked out of the house.
Exactly. And
Hmm.
hoping that somehow you're still going to be able to manage and keep a portion of that life together. Like, I don't know about you, but drinking was like it was the mainstay, it was the go-to. It was always available, and it never like talked back to me. But it wasn't the only thing that I liked. I mean, I really enjoyed just it was chasing that first high. That first drink that I had, I remember specifically, and it just really was like one of those metaphorical like white light moments. My body changed. I felt lighter and more confident, and all the anxiety seemed to go away. And it's the old story that I was chasing that high, and so it was alcohol, it was weed, there was coke, ecstasy, mushrooms. I'm sure there was a bunch of other stuff that I, like rubbed into my belly to get high on, and nothing could match it. So, were drugs part of your story too?
Oh my God. Yeah, you're going through the list. I'm like, and, uh, absolutely. So, my first love was pot.
Ah,
I moved to Texas day one, the day before I started ninth grade in a new high school in a new state. I walked in, and I was a boy before that, right? Like up through eighth grade, I was a boy. I listened to whatever music my parents were listening to.
sure.
Came back in time for dinner, all
Yeah,
that good stuff. I was a
yeah,
messed up, freaked out little kid. I'm not saying I wasn't.
yeah.
I was
Right.
awkward to myself, but sitting down day one in this new town, I sat across in homeroom from this dude named Jay, and Jay smelled like
Yay.
burnt rope.
Yes,
And
he did.
yep, and he had like Metallica patches on his denim jacket, and
Yes, he did.
yes, exactly. So it's like Jay's my new best friend,
Oh
and
my God.
yep, yeah, we were riding our BMX bikes around and raising heck in the Woodlands, Texas. Kicking over porta potties and
Oh my God, Joe.
yeah,
Seriously, did you play
stealing
any
traffic
mailbox?
cones.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, traffic cones. Did you do any mailbox baseball?
of course.
Yeah, oh my gosh, you
Yeah,
actually
of
did
course.
that.
Yep.
Oh, I never got into that. I definitely got it. I was straight laced too, man. But when I was 18, I left home, and that's when I had my first drinks. Shortly thereafter leaving home. So up until 18, I was
Mm.
very straight laced. Always made my curfew, if not early, and was honest. Did my homework, but I just never felt like I fit in. Didn't understand my own skin, and just always wanted to be somebody different. What were those feel? I can
Mhm.
tell. What were those feelings like for you?
I mean, that was certainly it. Like I talked about being a boy beforehand. I tried some sports. They put me on the basketball team because I was 6 foot tall in seventh grade, and
Oh
I
my
had
God.
no interest, right?
That
All
must
I
have been
wanted
so
to
fucking
do,
awkward.
oh, it was terrible. I had zero aggression, and I like shooting hoops, but anyway, I was never comfortable around other people. I was an only kid. I was a latchkey
Mm,
kid. What I wanted to do was come home from school and play Legos and play video games and draw. These are all things I can do by myself, right? Like I would go out and play with other kids, but I was always thinking about coming home and being by myself. It was where I felt comfortable because I didn't have to, misunderstand the social cues of being a
mm,
kid trying to grow up. Because it's like the old phrase, when they were handing out the rules of life book in kindergarten. I did not get that book.
neither
You
did
know,
I.
it was just
Yeah.
weird all the time. So when I finally got into ninth grade, I discovered pot. All of a sudden I got this crew of weirdos. You know, I got artists, musicians, I got misfits and outcasts
The
that,
best kind.
yeah,
But
and
yeah.
I fit right
But
in.
the
I
people that
finally
speak your
felt at home.
language. Yeah.
Hmm.
And
So
so where did that take you?
oh man, so kind of instantly, I was smoking pot in the morning before school, taking 5 foot long bong rips in in my driveway, and uh, going to school, and then we go out at lunch, get high after lunch. After school, it was just nuts. So it was like all day, every day. I was smoking to change the way I feel,
Yeah.
the way I felt, and I was realizing that I could change my body chemistry to make myself feel better, right? Like I
Mm,
understood if I added things into my system, uh, I didn't worry so much about what other people were thinking about me. I didn't worry about what I was thinking about me. I just was, I was in this haze, and I tried to stay there. I always tried to stay there because it was just uncomfortable everywhere else. Um, and I use that as an analogy for, you know, uh, the way that drugs took over my life is much like you said. I was always chasing that first high.
hmm
I got into ecstasy, mushrooms. I did LSD a couple times, but man, yeah, acid and
Yeah.
me don't mix.
Yeah. I had a feeling that that wasn't going to work for me either. So I stayed away. Mushrooms were as far as I got until I couldn't
Yeah,
handle those either.
yeah. I tried everything but heroin in my life, and thank God
Yeah.
I had enough, wherewithal to know if I tried that, I would die.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Me too. I was never around it, so I was never tempted by it.
mhm.
Thankfully, I mean that's how I got into everything else. I didn't really seek out those other avenues. They were just presented to me, and I was like, well, fuck it, yeah, let's see what this is about,
Yeah, sure.
but yeah, but in the back of my mind, I was very afraid of heroin. I know some people that have had issues with that. So grateful that as messed up as
Mhm.
I got and all the crazy bad shit that I did, at least at least we didn't do smack.
Yep, yep, yeah. Because
So,
yeah, go
oh
ahead.
no, okay, I was just gonna ask. So, you're discovering this part about yourself, right? You're acknowledging that you're awkward, you don't fit in, you don't really know who you are, you don't have an identity, and suddenly, you meet Jay, you have weed, and it creates this identity for you, right? That's what
Yeah,
happened to me with alcohol. It was like, oh shit, I'm that good time guy.
yeah,
And right? Yeah. So
yeah,
I'm fun to have around and until I'm not.
yeah. That's
Um,
totally it. I always had an ounce in my pocket, so everybody wanted me there. Of course, of course they want to invite Joe. He's got pot. Let's get Joe.
oh my God, it's so good. You and I weren't in the same orbit. Any, so when did you decide that art is something that you wanted to pursue? Was that a lifelong endeavor? I mean, did you discover like at an early age, like this is something I'm good at and something that I want to pursue? Or did it, sort of evolve, and did your addiction like enhance or take away from that?
Well, I always liked to draw as a kid, and I kind of reached a peak. Like I'm not good enough to keep drawing. So, like day two in ninth grade, I went into this elective of photography, and So within, a couple of weeks, we were put into the dark room. I processed my first negatives. I made my first prints, and seeing that image come up in the chemistry just blew my mind. I was
Mm.
like, this is it. This is magic. This is my voice, right? Like I don't have to stress over how I can draw. All I have to do is point the camera at what I'm trying to say. I can finally have an artistic voice, and so it just came naturally, and I fell in love with it immediately. Also, there were really good vents in the dark room, so my buddy Steve and I could smoke joints. So of
So like,
course I
oh,
loved it.
amazing. Oh, the best part of the elective, Mom, was that the ventilation in the dark room was fantastic.
Yeah, my mom is not getting a link to this podcast.
My mom's a big fan. I'm like, oh no. Um, that's amazing. So, like, what was the rest of high school like then? Where you just kind of you fell into that like artistic groove. You're the pothead photographer that probably is selling mushrooms on the side too, right? Let me ask you,
Sure.
did you have like cargo shorts or pants? Because I find that the guys that do a lot of dealing need multiple pockets.
I was a big fan of corduroy at the time,
Oh,
even in
okay.
Texas. So, and
No,
they all had
interesting.
really really deep pockets,
Yeah,
and you
yeah, they
couldn't
do.
really see the bulge because it was the '90s. So all the pants were really loose.
Okay, man. Perfect. Yeah,
Yeah,
what was
yeah.
it
I
with
mean,
corduroy pants in the 90s and like those cavernous pockets, man? I lost all kinds of shit in those things.
oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
So,
the rest of high school was much the same. I hung out with artists. I hung out with musicians. I spent time really investing in photography. That was I quickly decided in early ninth grade, I was like, this is what I want to do the rest of my life. Like, this is really, really something I'm good at. I had a wonderful teacher who encouraged me a lot,
it's great.
stayed with me after school to show me extra darkroom work. So I got to be really good, and I loved it. So I just invested a lot in that and drugs. You know, um, there was some drinking in high school. Every time I did in high school, it would be like stealing whatever, mixing whiskey, vodka, scotch, vermouth, you know, maraschino cherry juice, whatever my parents had in their. I
Oh
figured
boy.
maraschino cherries, it's in the bar, it must have booze in it. So we'd mix it
Nope.
together, get smashed, and throw up in the hot tub.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
So,
ridiculous.
oh my God. So, were your parents hip to any of this?
No.
Did they know? They did not.
I mean, I think my mom probably caught on a little bit when she caught me growing pot in my bedroom in 11th grade, which was
Mm.
in their house, right?
Yeah. Yeah. My cousin did that in the closet.
No, it was on my like floor in front of my window. I was
Jesus.
just so screwed up. I had no sense of reality. Like
Yeah.
I had no right or wrong. It's just what I wanted to do, when I wanted to do it, how I wanted to do it. It was the Joe show all the time. Uh, yeah, so it didn't fare well because I lost touch with reality. I mean, I lost touch with the boy, but I also hadn't found the man.
Yeah.
I was in this
God, I
really
can
weird
relate
in
to that.
between phase of growing up where there was just nothing. There was this person going through the motions of growing up, but not really having any direction on how to grow up. I just like doing this stuff. I like to get high. I like to get fucked up because it makes me feel good. This photography makes me feel good. That's it. Sign me up.
God, so many of us are like that. Um, that I, I can't quite put my finger on it. I mean, I guess I could, but we're not gonna like, go into like a psychology breakdown here. But that feeling of not belonging as a kid,
Mhm.
and there is something to masculine identity, and if you don't have that in some, you know, quote unquote normal or common capacity, you are like an outcast. And you're like,
Mhm.
but I still have some worth, but I guess you tell me I don't, so then I don't. And you know, um, luckily I mean, you found your art, but that was what it was like for me. I mean, I played sports and shit, but I liked hanging out with the people that I fucking hated REM growing up, but you know, uh, but the people that I had the most fun with were the people that were into like Morrissey and the Smiths and fucking REM and it's like this music sucks, but I'm having a good time. So, but I was actually, I guess, one of those people that sort of was a chameleon and would float from like, peer group to peer group to peer group. I didn't really have a consistent like, you know, uh, roster. I mean, I had a roster of friends. I had a lot of friends, but each friend or pair of friends, they all had something different than the other ones didn't. And so when we all get together, it was kind of weird, um, but it did create this lack of identity for me where I felt like completely lost and empty. And I didn't know what to do. And like you mentioned, it's like I lost touch with the boy, that inner child that, is talked a lot about in therapy. But it was also like, well, but where the fuck am I heading? What am I doing?
Exactly.
And I just bailed. And so you got out of high school. What did you do after that?
Um, so I bounced around from job to job to job because, well, I did go to I went to a state university for one semester,
Yeah,
after which I was politely asked to leave.
that
You know,
I did the
my
same thing. I go to
my
community college.
GPA matched my blood alcohol limit, so it's like time to go. Uh,
Yeah.
I went back home and it's like, I don't need college. I'm going to be a famous photographer. You watch this. So I worked obviously at Eckerd's 1 hour film processing for
Of course you did.
3 years or so. Um, and, I just kind of delivered pizzas. I did whatever. When I was 21, I got hit by an 18-wheeler in my Volkswagen and broke my hip.
Fuck.
Yep. It was like a really
Whoa.
bad situation. It took me, a couple months laying in bed to heal up. You kind of not relearn to walk, but I had to rebuild my muscles and stuff like that. But what did come out of it was a whole pile of money from this trucking company. So when
Oh.
I was 21, I took this giant pile of money and instead of paying for a full education or buying a house, I put it up my nose in a year and a half. You know,
Wow. Oh,
I was
yes, you
working at
did.
this sub shop just before I signed the check. And there was this really interesting girl there that wore all black and she liked to go to the nightclubs and she had these little bitty bags of drugs that were totally new to me. And it's like, oh, can I have some of that? Off to the
Oh,
races. And so yeah, after that, I was trying to sort of sling that around the country, making some felonious drives uh, to see friends. So that occupied a little bit of time, and when that money ran out, I didn't have, broke up with the girl because I had no money left.
yeah, she didn't want you.
I had, yeah, it was a bad situation.
I'm
So
sure it was.
I needed a job, right? Like a jobby job, because I was broke. I didn't have anywhere to go. So I took a job repairing the sewers of Houston for a year and a half, 2 summers in Houston, going down to sewers with the cockroaches and the
How
shit
big were the
floating
rats,
by.
dude? Were the
Yep.
fucking rats here? Yeah, oh my God.
Yep.
Wait,
Rats.
before we get into the wildlife of the sewer system of Houston, were you more or less admitting that you were a mule, Joe? Were you?
Well, I was self-employed, so not really a mule, It was my own idea. It was my own product. I was just trying to, be an entrepreneur. Let's say I had entrepreneurial spirit.
Okay. Oh my God.
Oh my
So
goodness.
life is going so well that
Yeah,
you run out of this money and you literally end up in the shittiest part of Houston.
that's
And
right.
how old are you?
21, 22, something
Fucking
like that.
killing it. Killing it.
Killing
Yeah,
it. Yeah, well, I was making like $21 an hour or something, which
actually,
was
that's,
insane in
yeah, it's pretty good
what,
back then.
1997?
Yeah.
96, whatever that was. Yeah, I was killing it, crushing it. And I realized after the second summer in the sewers that, I'm going to go to art school. College maybe isn't for me, but maybe art school. So I did that. I left for college, went up to Maine, did this little
Oh, wow.
conservatory for photography. And that's where I started to drink. right? Like I'm
Yeah.
finally in this space. I got off the hard stuff, right? Like I was smoking pot every day, my whole life leading up to this point, every day, all day. It continued until I got sober when I was, what, 41, 42, every day. So, that was my first love, right? But I started to drink in college. And because I was of age, of legal buying age in
Hmm.
this small college, I was the guy that everybody wanted around again, right? So it was like Mr.
Totally.
Hot Shot, Mr. Big Shot,
Totally.
keep calling me up. I was at all the parties all the time. And I would show up with cases of beer or, cases of 40s, whatever the case may be. But that's when I
Mickey's,
fell in love with drinking. Yeah, Mickey's,
the stingers.
whatever. Oh, wait, what was it? 800?
Yeah. Oh no, old E800. Yeah.
Oh,
Old English.
800.
Yeah. That's right, man. Woo, woo,
Yeah.
woo, woo, woo. Fucking turpentine. That stuff. that was that was big on the West Coast because it was a big part of like the West Coast rap and hip hop scene. Like uh, so here we are, like some country bumpkins in a coastal town in Oregon, like drinking old English because that's what Easy E did. So you're in Maine, and like what's going down? You're drinking a lot or what?
I definitely started to drink. I finally started doing really good in school. I was really into what I was doing. I was good at what
Right.
I was doing, but um, drinking started to really take off. Um, and I started to make some bad decisions.
Mm.
It was kind of a free for all sexually,
Yeah.
if you will.
Ah.
Art
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
It, you know,
Fast and loose.
yeah, it was got a little crazy, and so
As it does.
by the time I graduated there and I got down to Boston, which is where I went for my uh, for a second degree, I got down to Boston and I felt lost. I was in this big city. I went from the suburbs of Houston to this coastal town in rural Maine to Boston. Like I went to school in Fenway in Kenmore Square, right? So terrible
Wow.
parking, and I got through school. I guess I got that degree somehow, but it was sort of smoking pot all day and starting to hide the drinking, right? Like I had met this
Ah.
woman who
Yeah.
became my first hostage, as they say, right? So she was vegan and did yoga and really health conscious and really had a great head on her shoulders, and so I
And a great
obviously
ass
couldn't.
too.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah,
so of course we get married.
of course. 'Cause
Great
what else are
idea.
we gonna do? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so that didn't last long. I would come home every day, be like, "Hi honey, I'm going to go to Steve's apartment because Steve lived around the corner and he liked to drink whiskey and play guitar all night, and that's what I like to do." So I'd go over there, come home at 1 o'clock. She was asleep, so I'd crawl into bed. Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. So a year and a half later, I was just shocked. It's like, how could you seek love somewhere else? How could you be cheating on me? You know? So that quickly ended, right? Because I was not present. And it's only in sobriety that I recognized that that was because of me. That had
Yeah.
nothing to do with her. It's because I
No.
was a total dick.
No.
I was not present in that marriage. I had no idea um, who she was.
But that gave you the firepower to crank it up even more though, right? She was
Exactly.
cheating on me, man. She was cheating on me.
Yep.
Uh,
Well, and it kind of brought back the hiding the drinking. It kind of brought back chasing that early high when I
yeah.
was sneaky.
Yeah.
When I like
It
was
was a
smoking
rush.
pot and it was illegal and illicit, and I felt like a grown up because I could make my own decisions about what I wanted to do, and I could be bad and dirty if I wanted, and um, you know, eh, so it brought that back. Hiding the alcohol gave me that rush,
Hmm.
and so I invested heavily in it. There was, you know, pot smoking, but I really started drinking at that point. Um, yeah, definitely. Uh,
So how long were you in Boston for then? I'm enjoying all these
3 years?
geographicals.
Oh my God. I'm just getting going with geographicals. Holy crap. Um,
I had a feeling. I had a feeling.
Yeah, I was in Boston for what, 3 years until that marriage ended. Moved back to Texas. Let's see. And oh, that's actually when I picked up my niche that I'm in, my photography niche that I continue to do. That was like 2008.
And what is
I
that?
don't, huh?
What kind of what's the niche?
Well, I'm not going to go into that here because there's
Sure,
like
that's fine.
five of us that do it in the whole world.
Oh, gotcha. Yep,
So that could
no
really
problem.
narrow down kind of my
Yeah.
story.
Okay, no problem.
But I work in a very specialized industry with a very, specialized product that I photograph. Um, so, that sort of, in 2008, I moved back home. I started doing some of this work. Within 3 years, I was on the cover of 40 magazines. I'd
Jesus.
had a lot of covers. I'd been in a ton of books. I was, getting hired by a lot of, you know, important people, quote unquote, who, accelerated my career greatly. You know, Bought a house. I was doing great, traveling all around the country. Um, you know, Handling very expensive things, right? Let's just say that. And
Uh-huh.
so I was drinking too much, acting irresponsibly and recklessly, and somehow making money hand over fist. It was just insane. So, I would work all over the country, come home, and like I was working for myself. So I made a lot of money on these shoots, and I would come back home and play poker and get shit hammered for a month until I needed money again. Then I
Oh
would
my
call up,
God.
find a client, go out, do a week of work, come home, sit there, play poker, and get shithoused for another month. Uh,
Gambling got into it. Was it online poker?
so it was actually kind of house games because I had a house and nobody I knew did. I was again the host. Let's go to Joe's. Joe, he's having a party because it's Tuesday. Sure, it's a party, whatever. So yeah, it got out of control because it was all hours of the day and night at that point because
Oh
I
my.
was working for myself and I had these big stretches where I could just be drunk,
So you're
all
just
day,
at this
all night.
point you're just a full blown fucking lush. Now, do people know it? Are people saying anything to you about this, or is it just like that's just Joe?
That's just Joe. Yeah, absolutely. I kept the people around from high school and from college that liked to drink and smoke pot, just like me.
Right. Right.
That's who I hung out with. So they didn't say anything to me. I didn't say anything to them. We just sat around and got shithoused. Uh, and so it, yeah, I didn't have any concept of career goals. I didn't have any concept of time management or money savings.
So how
There
old are
was
you at this point?
This was 2010 to 12, so I was mid 30s.
Yeah. Did you
Yeah.
picture yourself that old? Did you ever think you were going to make it? Did you ever think you were going to make it to 40, let alone 30?
I remember as a boy, I was like, in the year 2000, I'm going to be 25. Like, that's insane. And I didn't think I would ever live that long. And then when I was 20, I was like, there's no way I'm going to reach 30. 40? No, I'll be dead. I'll be
Yeah.
dead.
Yeah.
And I didn't say because of drugs, because of drinking, because of something else. I just knew I wasn't going to live to be an old man.
Yeah. Yeah. That's,
Hmm.
I feel that way. I mean, I don't feel that way so much anymore, but I mean, it's still kind of, those old feelings definitely do like pop back in. But when I was living my life, yeah, I didn't see myself as an old man. I never have.
Hmm.
And I find that when I ask people, recovering alcoholics, recovering addicts, that a lot of us, that seems to be like a real through line, is that none of us pictured ourselves living at all past a certain time in
Well,
life.
right.
And
Yeah, I think that gives us permission within ourselves to burn the candle at both ends, because you know, fuck it. I'm not going to get old,
fuck it.
so I might as well spend
Yeah,
all my money and have fun doing it, and it doesn't matter.
right.
You know.
I think, not I think, I know at one point in my life, I was like, you know what? I don't know where this drinking and all this shit that I'm doing is going to lead me. I don't know. However, I'm going to have some amazing stories to tell. And that was sort of like, okay, let's just get into some shit because it's going to make a great story. So
Yep. Yep.
how many, okay, so you mentioned your first hostage. How many times you've been married, Joe?
Twice.
Twice.
Two
Okay.
times.
Two
Yep.
times. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And
My
how was,
second hostage was
yes.
was from Chicago. I was working for who used to be a client, had hired me full time because I was just getting sick of the rat race of
Right.
self-employment, right? So he
Right.
had hired me in 2011 to come up to Dallas full time. I met her because, we connected on Facebook. We had gone to that college in Maine together.
It's a coincidence.
Yeah, there was like 16 students at this college.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
understood.
we were well acquainted. And she realized, she looked me up on Facebook, like, oh, he's single again. Let me come say hi. So um, we liked to drink the same way. She didn't really smoke. She would, but we were kind of drinking buddies, and we got along. Like to cook, like to laugh. We're having a grand old time. I was doing somewhat okay financially, so we had some goals. But she got this great opportunity in Chicago in, God, what was that, 20 probably, to go up and start her own career there. She had all these connections in her industry in Chicago. I was like, great, I can do my job from anywhere. I'll go freelance again, sure. So we moved to Chicago, where I went stagnant for 6 months. I was like, we got to get a 2-bedroom apartment in Chicago because I'm going to need a studio because I'm going to be so busy. You're not even going to believe it. I'm going to go up there and get all kinds of new clients. Sitting there, I was drinking all day. That's what I did. I sat in my studio and drank. Uh-huh. So, yeah,
So that did
six
not
months
end
into,
well.
no, it did not. And that's the part that I get back to at the beginning of my story. She came in one day and was like, people don't drink like that. And so, and I said, yes, they do. People just don't talk about it. Everybody drinks like this because it had become normalized. It was like water for me.
Yeah.
I would drink
Yeah.
vodka all day. Um, you know, so that when she came home and we would have a couple of bottles of wine, it looked like I was drinking like a normal person. Then she would go to bed and I could get back to my bourbon.
Boy, you are a pro.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
that's professional drinking right there.
Yeah.
That's
And I'm
straight
also
A.
6'5", so I could put the bottles really high where she couldn't put where.
The shit that we do, man. Oh,
Unbelievable.
so okay, so that happens. She busts you pouring some vodka at home. And how soon after that did you and I meet at that meeting?
Probably less than a month.
Yeah, okay, that's what I
Yeah.
thought. That's
Yeah.
what I thought.
I'm a graduate of the Chapman Institute of Sobriety.
Hey,
you know?
good for you.
Yep.
Yes. So let's get to that. All right. So obviously, the marriage didn't work out. You flamed out. You end up at Chapman, right? Am I
Sure.
correct with that assumption?
Yes.
Okay. So you get through Chapman, and as you are, which is were you doing outpatient or inpatient?
Yep. IOP,
In,
outpatient.
IOP. Okay. So doing an IOP. So you you go through that program, you dry out, and you get out into the world.
Mm.
And what was that like?
Horrific. So scary. I mean, I learned quickly that I was an alcoholic. Like day one, boom, I identify. Like I drink like an alcoholic. Everybody who's saying that they're an alcoholic drinks just like me. You
Yeah,
know, drinks. Yeah, looks like a duck, walks like a duck. It's probably a duck.
right.
So I realized it quickly, but when I got out of Chapman, it was a real struggle. Like I could not let go of my oldest, bestest friend, which was getting fucked up. I had no idea how to live in the world anymore without drinking. I mean, yeah, I'd been to some AA meetings. Mostly I was a slobbery mess, crying, bawling, runny nose, the whole works. because I knew I couldn't drink, but I didn't know how to not drink. I'd also
Right.
become
It's a frightening place to be.
oh, horrible. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
between two worlds again, right?
Yeah.
Like between the boy,
Yeah.
between
There
the
you are
man,
again. Right. Right.
lost in space. Um, and so I was trying to put some time together. I was going to some AA meetings. I was trying a bunch of different stuff. There was this thing called Refuge Recovery, which was a Buddhist-based recovery
Okay.
program, which, by the time I went into IOP, I was a long-standing atheist.
Yeah.
So, I came into AA and like, oh, there's God on the, no,
It's on the fucking
no,
wall. Screw you guys.
it's on the
Yeah.
wall. I can't do that. I like steps 1 and 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
okay, I guess.
Yeah.
4 or 5, sure, I'll make a list. Okay, 8, 9, yeah, sure, that's probably helpful, but skipped all the steps we got in it. And that is why I could not stay sober. Coming out of Chapman, I got probably 60 total days. 30 through Chapman, 30 after, and then I went out for a couple of weeks. Right, like I'm still married at this point, but I was able to, hide it with great skill. Uh, and go into some meetings, but I'd stop and pick up a bottle on the way home from the meeting, down it, walk in, go to sleep. I went to a meeting, so it's probably good. But so I managed to put together some time, right? But I walked in one day, I walked into the house, and I brought my then wife some flowers. I'm like, baby, like, let's go out to dinner. I got 30 days. She's like, I thought you had 60. Oh,
Oh, shit.
yeah, that is actually the sobriety date I had told you. Shit, I'm so sorry. That
Oh,
was
boy.
the end of that marriage.
That was the end.
Yeah, yeah.
So, okay. All right. Your marriage is ending.
Mhm.
You went through treatment. So what did you do after that? Were you back out there for a while, or did you try another go at getting sober?
I kept going to meetings, and people in Chicago just kept saying, "Just keep coming. It gets better. Just keep
It does.
coming. It gets better." I had an awesome sponsor, Inigo, who you know very
Yeah.
well, who
And
took
go.
me under his wing and treated me with so much compassion and
The
caring.
fucking best.
He is such a mensch. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Um, and he took care of me, and he helped me feel safe for the first time ever in sobriety. Um, but I had nowhere to live in Chicago. I couldn't afford to live in Chicago. So I moved back to Texas, 42 years old. Um, and I started going to some meetings there. I was living at my parents' house, tail tucked between my legs. I was going to meetings there. And the weird thing is that people in Texas were saying the same stuff. They drank like alcoholics too. They were smiling 25 years sober, and they kept saying, just keep coming. It gets better, you know? I couldn't believe it. I was like, either everybody's BSing me, they're all in this together to put a ruse over Joe.
It's a conspiracy.
It's
Yes.
totally a conspiracy or a
Yeah.
cult.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Against
These
you.
guys are on the phone with each
Yeah.
other afterwards,
Yeah.
like, Joe's coming down. Better
Jesus
get ready to
Christ.
fuck with him.
We're not self-centered or anything. They're all
Oh,
out to get me.
yeah. So I was in Texas for a little while, and I got this crazy job offer in New Jersey. Now I had pieced together again some time in Texas. 2 months here, 3 months here, and my last stint of drinking was from the day after Christmas in 2018 until February 26, 2019. I remember it was the day after Christmas because I had just spent Christmas at my parents' house. I moved to New Jersey in like September, 21 days sober. I stayed sober until through Christmas. I got to the airport day after Christmas and I had 4 doubles at the airport.
Yes, you did.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck. So,
And that I drank for 2 months after that.
God
2
damn.
months.
That must have been hell. That must have been really, really awful. That's the
Yeah.
worst feeling. Is
Yeah.
what are the what's this what
Full of AA.
yeah.
Yeah,
Knowing
that's
that
exactly where it was.
yeah,
I had
like
started to work
I
the steps. I knew the program. I knew what to do, but I just couldn't do it. I couldn't bring myself to surrender, right? Like it's that jumping off point that they talk about. I wasn't ready to give up my old way of life. I wasn't ready to give up the only Joe I had ever known. and venture into this new identity, into this new life that I knew I needed, but had no idea what it looked like, you know?
That's so fucking scary. I know exactly that feeling. And in what do you what is it that keeps you connected to that? Is there one thing in your day to day that you use to keep you connected to that person that you know you can and should and would be happy being? Or is it kind of like a combination of things? Like if I do these, 3 or 4 things throughout the day, I'm going to be where I need to be each day.
Yeah, I mean, so that's jumping forward quite a bit for me in as far
Okay,
as my
well
my
let's go back
process.
then. Yeah,
No,
let's go
no,
back.
I mean
Yeah,
we don't have to, but what I would say today is the main part of that is not anything close to what I would have imagined it should or could be,
yeah,
you know?
for sure, for sure. Yes.
Um, so, I was living in this apartment in New Jersey, the only apartment above the only bar in the town that I live in Metuchen. I was sponsoring
Sure.
myself, so it was a perfectly good idea to get this cute little apartment above a bar.
How about
Um,
like you could find a spare bedroom or something?
oh no, 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 no,
Yeah.
no. So it was sort of the end of 2019 at this point. I had been sober by myself for almost a year.
Jesus
I'd been to
Christ.
some meetings. I
Yeah.
had 3 or 4 guys that I had asked to be my sponsor and never called again.
Yeah.
I was white knuckling it. The Grateful Dead cover bands were playing in the bar below, and I was clenching my fists and gritting my teeth every night, not drinking. Right. Then the pandemic hits, which I did not drink through, but I was miserable because
Oh
I
my
was
God.
alone and I was
Oh God,
deathly
Chad.
afraid I was going to drink because I hadn't, I was just, I was done. So I always say that my last day drinking was February 26th, but my sobriety date is August 1st of 2020. That's when I met Tom. Tom is my sponsor from August 1st, 2020 through today. Um, I saw him on an online Zoom meeting, long hair, cool as a cucumber. He had 25 years sober, my
Yeah.
age.
Yeah.
It's like, how the fuck did you do that,
Yeah.
man? Like,
Yeah.
I want what you have. Just, he had it, man. The loose demeanor. He had, loose shoulders. He had. It. So I asked him, I was like, dude, how did you do this? He's like, well, I'll tell you what you do. Tomorrow go to a meeting and then at 9:15 call me. It's like,
Hmm.
okay. So the next day at 9:15 I called him. I was like, okay, I went to a meeting. What do I do? He's like, well, tomorrow go to a meeting and then call me at 9:15. Okay. So I did that. I was finally kind of ready to listen to something else. I was at that jumping off point. I was so sick of being miserable. I was willing to do anything that anybody said. All I had left was yes, right?
Mm.
Like I I I had no idea how to do anything. My whole life had led me through a series of no's, like no, I'm not going to do that, to no, I can't do that, to no, I'm not going to try that, to yes, please. Like finally, yes, please. So I started doing what Tom suggested, calling every day, going to lots of meetings. He got me into his home group. Um, and he took me through the 12 steps online, right? Like we read from the book, we went through the steps. And today, having worked the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, talking to my sponsor every single day, mostly. Tom, when you listen to this, I know it's not every day, but
He's
we
got a calendar.
that's what keeps me sober every day. It's
Yeah.
staying active in this
Yeah.
program. It's doing something every single day that reminds me that I'm an alcoholic and
Yeah.
that I cannot go back out because I know I have another drink in me. I
Yeah.
don't know if I have another sober in me.
Absolutely, man. God, that
So I
I
just
could
have to
not say
stay
that
in
about.
the sorry.
No, 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 no. Please, you have to stay in the moment. Yeah.
I have to stay in the moment. I have to stay present. I have to stay in the middle of the herd. I mean, there's all these cliches, right? That we
But
talk about.
they're true.
They're true. They become cliches because they work.
Hmm.
But
Mhm.
what's in between those cliches and in these little sayings that we have is that um, by working something differently, by working our life differently than we've ever tried to do it before, there's a freedom in that. That there's a new life that's different from one we ever thought ourselves as having, right? Like there's a humility in life. There's honor and integrity in life all of a sudden because I'm not this scheming, felonious dick that is not present for my relationships, that cheats, steals, and lies even when the truth is good enough. You know, uh, I wasn't prepared for actual life, but turning my will and my life over to the care of something, anything else,
Yeah.
has given me a new way of looking at the world, a totally new perspective that has just blown my mind, and it gives me this freedom every day. I heard this great thing in a meeting the other day where we come in for relief and we stay for the freedom, uh,
Mm, God.
and yeah, it's so good, right?
Yeah. So
And
good.
that
It's
that
so
that's what
true.
I get to feel today. I get the opportunity to um, help others. Like I have 3 sponsees now. I get to
Okay.
share with them what Tom shared with me, and seeing them get it, seeing
Yeah.
them hitting that white light moment of
Yeah.
like, I don't have to feel like that anymore. It
That's
does
right.
get better. All of a sudden I get to share that with other people, just the same way it was shared with me.
It's so beautiful and so true, man. Getting outside of yourself and doing something for somebody else every day is really important. Even, you know, I think it's just a very simple and good rule for life, whether you're an addict, alcoholic, whatever, or not. Just
Mhm.
do something for somebody else each day. Get
Yeah,
outside of yourself. You'll find that life has more meaning than you ever thought that it did.
yeah. In giving, we receive.
Amen.
I think I can't remember who said it, but I think it was Einstein actually. A life lived for others is a life worth living. Uh,
Jesus.
there's a lot of people out there in the world that need our program, right? Like most
Yeah.
of them drive on the New Jersey Turnpike. They can do well to think of others for just a minute, you know.
Fuck you.
uh, but I it's so amazing the turn of events that has happened in my life, and it's such a blessing to be able to see it in others. I try to help not just other alcoholics today, but anybody that needs it. A buddy at work that was going through a really hard time, and we would just stand out back and smoke our cigarettes and just talk and try to come to some acceptance, some kind of peace. Um, and I didn't teach him AA stuff, but I got to share with him in a way that was conscious and present because of what AA taught me, because I can be just an ear rather
Mhm.
than having to like shove my ideas down somebody else's throat.
God, that's so true, man. That is so true. God, Joe, this has been amazing. I really am so happy that we were able to do this. I'm fucking proud of you too, man. Like,
Thanks,
you're
brother.
doing it. You are really doing it. And thanks again so much. I love you and be well, brother.
I love you too, Chad. Thanks so much for having me. And it's a real privilege.